Alright guys, welcome to unit testing. I'm finally going to put on my true mask, which is development, and show you some cool stuff. So first off, before we start with unit testing, I'd like to fix one bug really quick. Remember, in your regression testing, we found a problem with the cursor. For example, when the user clicks on the text field, the cursor of the mouse goes here. Instead, it should be over here. That's a quick bug I'd like to fix. So how does a developer go about to fix this? Great question. Now, you have to remember that we have different stages. We have different environments in software development. First, we have a local dev environment. Then we have test environment. And then we have UAT. Then we have prod, which is the final environment faces with the public. So apparently, this Hiram node.netlify.app, this is our prod environment. And that's why you're able to open this app on your computer. So this is the real prod live environment. In order for me to fix it, as a developer, I have to use my local environment. And I'll show you how it looks like. So here, this is our project. This is the actual project for the NodeKeeper app. And there are many files. First off, I'm going to click this icon so that the left sidebar goes away. And I have a bigger real estate here. Then I will open up my terminal. This down here is a terminal. Don't worry, we will learn these things down in the future. It might seem a little intimidating for now. Okie dokie, let me start by typing npm start. And this is going to spin up our local dev environment. And this is where we do the development. It's like, this is our factory. It's going to start our factory and we will start producing. Okay. I'm going to press enter and that is spinning up. Did you check the left side? And you might be wondering, well, something just happened and it still seems like nothing happened because we're still on the Keeper app. Well, something huge happened already. Check out the URL. This URL says localhost 3000, meaning this application, the NodeKeeper application, currently running only in my computer's local environment. If you don't believe me, we can go and check our prod environment, and it's here. This URL is our prod, and this URL here is our local. So whatever I do in my local environment, which is my development environment here, it will not affect our prod unless I deploy it. Now, I want to fix this one bug which really bothered us, which is, let me refresh this page. All right, remember, I am on the local host, okay, which is my local dev environment. Here, when I click my note box, the cursor is here. That is what we are going to fix. So first of all, and I know that it is this particular component, it's create area. That's how I named it, kind of stupid. So create area is actually this create node area. I should have called it probably create card, something like that. Anyways, let's go inside and I'm going to click this icon to have the left side away. And then I'm going to scroll. You know what? I can also close this terminal so I have bigger, wider real estate. Let's scroll down here. So this is all the code. Well, actually, this is not all the code. We have a lot more codes in the footer, header, and node areas. Never mind, we don't look into those files. Okay, so starting from the top, we have a function. This does the create area. We have a handle change function, submit node, all developer stuff. You don't have to worry about those. I think it's the input. It's this HTML, and that is controlling this title field and the text area. This one is controlling the body here. And then we have a zoom and add icon. So basically this component itself is our plus icon. Alrighty. So the fix is quite easy. We missed one property for the input field, which is out of focus. All right. If I add this and save it, and this will simply fix our issue. Let me refresh the page. Remember, this is localhost, okay? I'm not over here. I'm still on my local host. whatever change I make will not impact the prod because I didn't deploy anything. So here, let me click this box. Do you see it? My cursor is at the title field now. Refresh the page, test it one more time. Click it here. There we go. Bug is fixed. So that's how developers fix bugs. Of course, this is a very simple one, but the process, the workflow is such. And after we fix this bug, we will deploy this current version. Right now, this particular version of our app is different than the version in the prod. So the prod has the bug, but our local version doesn't have that bug. So what do? Is we will create a new build from this current version of the app with the new change, and then we will deploy it to test environment, then UAT, and then finally prod. And we're not seeing those in this level. So anyways, the bug is fixed and I'm happy about it, but I'm not gonna push it. So in the prod, it still stays with the bug. And another thing you might be wondering, how about this one? Like if the title and the note body is empty, we should not be able to click this, or when we click it, it shouldn't create empty cards. All right, that I can fix it really quick too. In here, let's go up. All right, here, submit note. All right, this is the actual function that's taking care of note submission. So here, before I add my note, I have to check if this note is empty. If so, I'm not going to create a new note. Otherwise, I can create a new note. So it's simply an if-else statement. If note.title.length is equal to 0. That means the title length, if you type something, there is a length. For example, if you type Ilzad, the length is 5 letters. So if there's a title, that means there should be a length of the string. And if that's equal to 0, that means there is nothing. So if there is nothing, we can say if the title is empty, or this is double pipe, that means or the note dot content, which is actually the body, dot length is equal to 0. So either of them, if the title is not given or the body is not given, I'm not going to create anything. I'm just going to return it. So this means if any of these conditions is true, I have only two conditions. If the title is empty or if the body is empty, return it, meaning do not execute the rest of the code. Otherwise, execute the rest of the code. All right, let's test out our fix. So here, let's click on it. And without giving any title and the body, I'm going to click on plus icon. There we go. I'm clicking it. Nothing is created. It's fixed. Nice. Second bug is fixed. Now we are coming to the unit testing part. Of course, every developer needs to test their own code as well. So there are multiple levels of testing. The unit testing is the lowest level. That is the most smallest level of testing, which is developer's code itself. And then after it's deployed to various different environments, it goes to the manual testers, automation testers, all the different types of tests later on. But the first initial testing should be a unit test, which is the developer's test itself. Because as a developer, I wrote a piece of code and I have to be responsible over the quality of my code. And to be responsible, I have to write a test case for my own code. And how do I do it? For that, I have to show you how this app is created. Then you will have an idea. For example, if you notice, we have this header, the top area, and then we have the actual note creating area. And we also have a bottom area, the down copyright footer area. And check these files. The app.js is the actual file. By the way, this is JavaScript programming. It's not Java. So, and then it comes to the create area.js file, and that is this particular component, and footer area, the footer.js, which is this down component here at the bottom. Then we have header. header.js, and that is the top component, the logo area. Then we have note.js file, and this is the actual file that takes care of each individual card component. For example, here, let's say my title, somebody. Then create it. Do you see this note, this individual card? And that is taken care of by this particular component. As you can see, I'm using h1 and there's a p tag. There we go. And now as for my unit test, I have to test each of my components individually. For example, let's go to app.spec.js. This is the file we would be using to test out each of these components, meaning each of these UI components here. Let's go inside. And all of these import files are the necessary libraries we need to have in order to test. First of all, I would like to test my header component. What do I mean I want to test a header component? How do I test it? Well, it's as simple as verifying that this header component is painted on the document. It's like created on the page. That's what we call painting. So it needs to be painted. All right, let's start. We're going to say describe, then the actual description. And for the second argument is the actual test case. For the description, I will say when user is on home page. Okay, so all of the test cases would go inside the description area. All right, when user is on home page, what is the first thing I would like to test? As I said, it's the header. It goes as it, then the test scenario goes here. For the second argument is the actual code that executes the test scenario. I will say then it renders the header component. This is the scenario name. Then for the actual code, I'm going to render the header component. There we go. Now the header component is rendered. Then I will assign this component to a variable, and I would like to call my variable header. All right, now it's my checkpoint. Here I'm checking by saying expect that header.getByTestID. Then I'm going to provide a test ID here, and that should be to be in the document. So this is the actual line that asserts my testing. Okay, first of all, we are painting the header component, only this component. Then from that particular component, which I named it header, I assign the painted component to the header variable. Then from this component, I am searching an element by its test ID. So that, let's go inside. So it has a data test ID equal to header ID, or we can name it anything you want. So that's just a random name I put. So we're going to search by this particular text. I'm going to copy it and give it here. So we are expecting that this to be in the document. What is this? Okay, we're finding this by the header ID, which is this. So the whole header itself. That's what I'm referring to when I say this. All right, you save it. That's it. This is my unit testing. I'm testing my own code. I'm simply saying that when user is on home page, then the header component should be rendered. And how do I know it's rendered? Using some type of testing libraries. So using this library called a jest, I am rendering the header component, then it's doing all these things. All right, how do I execute this code? I'm going to open up my terminal, and this terminal is currently running for our local host. So I can create a new terminal on the side. Then I will type npm test. Press enter. It executes the code. All right, our test is passed. If I want to write another test for the create area, I want to make sure that this create area is also painted. I will simply go in here and write one more test case, another scenario. Scenario name is then it renders the node creating card. And for that, I have my component already imported, which is create area component. So we need to render it. Render means, as I said, it's simply painting. We need to paint this component on the page before we start testing. Okay, create area. And I would like to assign that to a variable. My variable name is notebox. Then I have an expectation. So my expectation is notebox dot get by test ID. And I also have a test ID for this. And I want that to be in the document as well. So that is the simplest verification that it should be successfully painted. All right, as for my test ID, I will provide it, which is called test ID. I just named it test ID. You can name it anything you want. And I'll show you where this is. So I'm looking for this particular text from my create area component. And if we go inside and go to the actual HTML part, here we go. So on the form tag, I have this data-test ID attribute, which is equal to test ID. So this is what we're looking for. This whole component, this whole form component is what we're looking for when we say get by test ID. All right, let's execute both of these test cases. We have two right now. I'll say npm test. Cool, both of them are passed. And one last test case I would like to show is a kind of a negative test case. For example, let me refresh this page. Initially, we don't see this plus icon. The plus icon is only visible when we click on the text field, then it shows up. Otherwise, on the initial rendering, on the initial painting of the homepage, we don't see the plus icon. So for that, I would like to write another test case. Test case name is then plus icon is not visible, and I can still render the same create area component because the plus icon is located in there. Copy that, but my assertion is going to look like this. Expect notebox dot get by test ID, and I have a test ID that I assigned for that particular plus icon actually. And I want that plus icon to not be visible. That's what I am checking against. All right, this is our verification point. Expect that this not to be visible. So it shouldn't be visible. So what is this? This is the button that we're looking for. And that button also has its own ID. So this is the one. It has a data test ID called button. I'll copy that and I'll paste it here. All right, so it shouldn't be visible. Cool. Let's run our test one more time. npm test. So it's going to execute all of these three test cases, and I hope all three will pass. And that will be the end of our lesson. Yay! All three tests passed. All right, guys. So this is how a unit testing goes, and it's obviously what the developers do. And it's very rare that in some companies, if the QA engineer, if the QA automation engineers are very technical, like at a developer level, yeah, sure, they can definitely do unit testing. But otherwise, I promise you, 95 to 99% of the time, QA, the automation engineers, are not going to be doing unit testing for developers. Developers should do it themselves. But it's not difficult. If you get the hang of it, if you are interested in learning web development, everything makes sense. Everything is so logical. It's actually really, really fun. All right, this is the last part of our workshop, and I really hope that you enjoyed it and took a lot of notes. As always, if you have any questions or confusions, please immediately take a note. Otherwise, you are going to forget it. And when you are in one of your sessions with your mentor, definitely ask it and get your questions answered, get your confusions cleared out so that you have no impediment, no obstacles. You'll be progressing every single day. All right, everyone, keep it up. I'll see you later.